Hi, everybody. Good morning. Welcome to day 2 of week 2. This will be our second day working on the story, A Priceless Lesson in Humility. Now, I just want to remind you that there's a teacher's guide, linked to it on the bottom, and this can provide some helpful information in understanding the lessons and providing some additional insight into how to use these activities in the best ways for your individual students. Now, we'll be completing our usual opening do now warm-up routine. There's a before reading activity for students. This directs students to revisit an important quote or an important line in the story from yesterday and to try to answer some questions about an important concept, a core belief. The narrator of the story had gone against one of his core beliefs and learned a lesson from doing that. The purpose of today's lesson, today we are going to conclude our reading of the essay. Let's read to learn more about the author and how his identity informs his beliefs and values. Again, teachers can revisit the academic vocabulary words, humility and strength. They could also encourage students to add any additional information for these words based on their reading of the story yesterday. There's a number of additional discussion questions, a link to the text, as well as a link to an audio recording of the text. Once again, students could continue working on the same document in which they were working on yesterday, and a copy of this document can be accessed in the Video Adapted Resources folder. As you can see, the same questions from the PowerPoint have been pasted onto this document for the students to work on, and this makes it easy for students to access their work and to even complete their work independently or with a partner or at a separate time if they need some extra time to continue working on it. Now, there's an after reading activity. Students will start to build up their writing skills. Many, even beginner ENL students, can understand this fill-in-the-blank concept of writing, and the sentence starters provide support for even entering and emerging ENL students. More advanced students may not need the sentence starters, and the teacher could either offer less scaffolding to challenge our more advanced students, or to even rephrase the prompt as a question, such as, what did the author learn? Or for the first part, and a second follow-up question for the second part could be, what was your experience coming to America? Or what was your an experience in life in which you learned a lesson from? Again, the prompt could be modified additionally if a particular student did not come to America from another country. It could just be a time where the student came to a new place, moved to a new town, or they could talk about an experience that had a large impact on their life. So there's a number of ways for this to be modified for the individual needs of students. But it's important to point this out to ENL students who might see a prompt that doesn't apply to them and then quickly assume that the entire lesson doesn't apply to them. So it's important for the teacher to point out that these concepts apply to everybody and that everybody's learned lessons in their life and has had new experiences. Finally, there's a number of closing and connecting activities. Teachers could check for students' understanding of the story and asking what the blind woman in the story was really asking for. Students could make connections to the text where they discuss their own core beliefs and how that connects to the author's core beliefs. Students can discuss a time they learned a priceless lesson, and students could additionally add to extend the learning. They could add to their your life paragraph. This prompt, your life, will be revisited in the day 5 lesson. So it's important for all students to be able to complete their response to this prompt. So at this time, we could jump right into today's lesson. Can somebody please read today's essential question? Good. How can sharing our stories make us stronger? Can somebody please read today's 2 lesson objectives? Good. To make logical inferences from the close reading of a text. Good. We want our students to be able to draw inferences and to draw conclusions from the text. And it's important to point out how inferences differ from information stated directly in a text. This requires students to sort of read between the lines and to sort of gain information that's implied in the text rather than directly stated. Secondly, we are going to develop personal, cultural, and thematic connections to texts and big ideas. Let's look at this image. What do you see? What do you think? What do you wonder? Now you can provide these sentence starters for our students. In the image, I see, I think that, one thing I wonder is. Now you can pause the video here and give students a chance to respond to this image, and they could use these sentence starters for support. Now some students may say, in the image, I see a woman who is blind. I think that her cane can help her see where to go. One thing I wonder is how hard it is to walk around if you're blind. Now, in this before reading activity, students are going to revisit an excerpt that they had read in yesterday's section. The quote says, I hated what I saw in myself. This incident reawakened my core belief. It reaffirmed that I believe in humility, even though I'd lost it for a moment. Now, it's important for students to understand this concept of a core belief. Hopefully, students could explain this concept and then make connections to their own core beliefs. It was a mistake for the author to go against one of his core beliefs, and he realizes that and learns an important lesson from that experience. Now you could begin reading the text with your students. You could provide the text here at this link. There's a link to a PDF. And there's a number of discussion questions provided in which the students could answer on their handout sheet. Following the reading of the text, students should complete the after reading activity, first in summarizing the text of the story, as well as writing their own version of an experience that they have had. Now, it may be necessary to modify this depending on the abilities of your students. But many students could understand this fill-in-the-blank concept, and this graphic organizer is something that all students could complete. More advanced students may not need as much scaffolding and could extend on their response when discussing their life. Finally, there's a few closing and connecting activities. It's maybe needed to check for understanding. Students could make connections to the text by sharing more about their own core beliefs. They could write a letter or a message to a person who taught them a lesson in the same way that the blind woman had taught the author a lesson. And once again, they could add some more details to their your life response from the after reading activity. So at this time, you could jump into the before reading activity with your students and enjoy today's lesson.